The secret to breaking through fear when it comes to public speaking or speaking on camera. They say that the two biggest fears human beings have are one, of death, and number two, of speaking in public. If that's one of your fears, I'm going to show you in this video how to embrace your fear and get right through it so that you can be the best public speaker, be the best on-camera talker that you can be. Let's get started. Fear. Fear is so crippling, and yet fear is part of the fabric of human nature. We all have it, whether it's fear of large things, a fear of a large rhino coming at us, or it's the fear of sounding kind of untrained or sounding unprofessional. So many fears, we could just go list our way through them. If you have a fear about public speaking, about speaking in front of people, about speaking in front of the camera, maybe that's stopping you from doing what you want to do, what you want to achieve, how you want to get your message across. And maybe you think to yourself, well, what can I do? Well, obviously, if you're watching this video and other videos like it, you're discovering new techniques, new ways to say, hey, I'm not alone. I'm not alone with this fear that I think is just my own. No, a lot of people have fears just like mine. Everyone has fears, and a lot of them are the same. So what can you do to break through that fear so that you can get up in front of a large audience, get up in front of that camera, and be yourself, be comfortable, and be natural? Here's how you do it. Number one, write down your fears. So right now, I want you to write down those fears. What are your fears? Let's take a few fears you have of public speaking, of being on camera. For me, a fear of speaking in front of a large audience is I run warm, I get hot. So I fear that I'll start to get really sweaty. If you ever watch Sex and the City, there's a moment later in the seasons where Samantha has undergone cancer treatment, and one of the things from that is hot flashes, so she's wearing a wig, and she's sitting at this event, and she's just like hot and sweaty, and she realizes, you know what? That my truth is, I am sweating. I am hot. I'm going to say something about this, and she says it. And she throws off that wig, and by doing that, everybody in the audience who has cancer and is wearing a wig throws off their wig. It's a moment of freedom, a moment of empowerment, a moment of bonding together. So that's my fear is I'm going to be sweaty, I'm going to be hot. My fear is I'm going to come across as unprofessional, or they're going to think, does he really know what he's talking about? What are your fears? If you don't write them down right now, that's okay. That's your assignment. This is a video about some assignments I'm giving you so you can start to break through them. What are your fears? And be free-flowing. Let them all come out. Let them come out deeply. I have a fear that people will laugh at me. I have a fear that I'll be a failure. I have a fear that my message won't be heard. It goes on and on and on. But I want you to write them down so that you can see them in black and white. Write down your fears. The fear I have of public speaking. The fear I have of being in front of the camera. Good. Now you have that little list. Now let's put that to the side and let's open another sheet of paper. And I want you to write this out by hand, not just typing it up. That's too easy. I want you to write these things down so they're clear. You're connected to what you're writing. On this next piece of paper, take an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper so you really have some room to write. And maybe it's more than one sheet. Maybe it's a few sheets. On this next sheet of paper, with it's blank at this moment, I want you to answer the question, what would my life look like if I could speak in public? If I could be on camera, if I could make that successful presentation or speech? How would that change my life? What would that look like for me? What kind of feelings would I have? Gosh, I remember before I started doing these videos, about 5 years now, I remember thinking, God, it would be so great if I did a video. I would have followers. I'd be able to get my word out. I would have more recognition in what I do. I'd be able to share with a larger audience. getting that first video going, I put that camera up on myself and I filmed myself and I thought, oh, it's just so dark. And finally I hired an assistant, talked about this project I wanted to, first come out with a video on, which was how to speak from the diaphragm. Finally, we did it. But before that, I would think to myself and I would write down, these are the things I want. I want to have a successful YouTube channel. I want to talk about what I do. I want people to be able to get the message that there is a way to get better at their voice, at their speech, in their presentation, their comportment, the way they handle themselves, the way they show up in the world. So I wrote about what that would look like. I would be so much more successful. I would be so much happier. I'd be so much freer from this burden of fear that was holding me back. So I want you to write it down. You'd be happy. You'd be wealthier. You'd have more people in your life. You would affect more people. You would be able to finally share those things in your life that would make a difference in someone else's life. Write that down so you can see that. And then step 3, just like Samantha in Sex and the City, I want you to look at your fears and I want you to hold them close to you and say, I embrace you. I'm aware of you. I know what you are, and you are pretty silly. And that way you can release them. Look at these fears. Look how they are as simple as that. They're these little ghosts. They're these little phantoms. They're just in our head. One of my fears I have, because I saw Jaws, the movie Jaws, when I was very young, and I grew up by the beach, I've always had a fear of sharks in the ocean. Now, you know what? That's a reasonable fear. However, that fear would transport myself to pools, and I would be in a pool when I was a kid. I think, oh, maybe there's a shark in this pool, because I saw a James Bond movie where they put the shark in the pool. That's a side story. The point being, I look back now and go, well, that's really ridiculous as far as the pool goes. And as far as the ocean goes, the chances of getting, touched by a shark, although we've had some shark sightings in California recently, and that's another story. But generally speaking, most beaches, most of the time, you'll know beforehand that really that's an ephemeral fear. It's not a real fear. So by looking at your fears and looking at what it would look like if you were on the other side of the fear and being able to have a sense of humor and laugh at these fears, you can let them go. By breaking through that, walking through that, you're going to be on your way to standing up for yourself, to realize these are only fears. And maybe if you're up on stage and you realize, gosh, I am stuttering or I am speaking too quickly, you can start to realize to yourself, wait a second, I could say this to people. I'm sorry I'm going so fast. Or as Mikhail Baryshnikov said at one of his speeches, he said, I'm very nervous to be up here. And the audience laughed and was with him. Because we so often think the audience is not on our side. We're on your side. If you open yourself up and make yourself vulnerable, we'll be on your side. Try this fear technique, writing them down, what they are, how to address them, how to get rid of them, and start to make your first presentation, your next public speech, your next video presentation, knowing that you are yourself, authentic, and gosh darn it, you're worth it. If you like my video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel.